You're live. You might be live. Okay, impromptu video here, live stream. I was just watching a video and not totally on the subject of a couple other videos I was just watching, but I decided, well, that's enough material for me to do a video that I already did like 5 videos about minimalism and decluttering or whatever in the wardrobe and that kind of thing. But this one sort of tied in, and I know I've talked about at least it way back in the beginning of this channel. The first 3 videos, I think, were all about the subject of things I like and don't like. That was kind of the whole point, right? But I was just watching a video, and he had said 5 menswear items or trends or whatever that he hates, and I didn't know if I could stop at 5, but I'll stop somewhere around 5 to start this off, but also my rebuttal to some of the things he said. So instead of going into long explanations of what is mostly obvious, what I wrote down here first. 1, yes, Crocs and flip-flops. I've talked about this, I'm sure. Especially, other people who make these lists live in places like England and the Northeast. And so, of course, their dislikes are slightly different than ours. Crocs, yeah, they've made it everywhere. You'd think that would be just like a Florida thing, but no, it's here too. But flip-flops has been way longer than Crocs. Flip-flops has been a California thing for decades or whatever. Ever since they first told the surfers they couldn't come barefoot into the burger place or whatever, right? Big Wednesday, refer to that again. Yeah, I see way too many. And with the flip-flop goes the tank top, right? Which I own tank tops. Yes, it gets warm and I, wear them around the house and, sleep in them most of the summer. But I don't typically wear them out as regular shirts. If it has a logo and it's not just the undershirt kind, a little bit more, but then not to anything like a restaurant in the evening. If you're going to somebody's pool party and you're wearing flip-flops and a tank top, sure, it's summer, you're doing that. But if you're then afterward going to a restaurant that night, go home and change. Okay. 2, I'm doing these out of order of what he was doing. But for me, black suits, it's like the polar opposite. It's like, here you have way too casual. Now here you have what's way too formal or way too funeral. Guys who do the black shirt with the black tie, with the black suit, but you're not going to a funeral. You're going to, every social function in your entire life. All you ever wear is black suits. You're not the Men in Black. Okay. It doesn't look right. He had mentioned, dumb fads at weddings, like people who wear Crocs at weddings. Well, dumb fads don't belong at weddings. But when you're not at a wedding, and even a black suit would be ghastly at most weddings, right? But then for me, though, also the sport jacket with a t-shirt, like just no, don't do that either. They're two totally different formality scale things. I haven't seen anybody with a tank top and a t-shirt yet. Some miracle. But then again, with t-shirts, though, again, I live in California, so everybody wears t-shirts most of the time. And if it's a pocket t-shirt, and they're working, like, yeah, okay, that's one thing. You're stopping in for lunch, you're not changing into a different shirt or whatever. But again, if you're going to do a movie or something later, don't just wear the pocket t-shirt, like, and the design t-shirt again. And through most of there are shirts with buttons that are actually lighter weight material often than t-shirts. I've said this before. I'm wearing one right now. This is, a cowboy style Western shirt that's a pretty light weave. It's, and the breeze goes through it actually more comfortably than a t-shirt, and all that. Excuse me. And then similar to that, we have Sweatpants in public, sweatpants being like even below jeans on the formality scale. And as much as I, have claimed, I don't really like, I've worn jeans, denim jeans most of my life, more than khaki pants probably, but I prefer the khaki and the chino pants. Oh, and also don't forget the backward hat. This depends on the situation, but most of the time the backwards hat, oh no, my hair looks great, but the backwards hat, not the best style option. And of course, I'm doing a video, so I just grabbed a hat. But typically in public, other type of hats can look better than baseball hats. But if you're going to the game or you're going to the restaurant to watch the game or that kind of thing, then people will be wearing their sports outfits. And sports apparel can be nicer or not nicer. I did a whole video about this just like a couple weeks ago. So it was under the baseball thing because I was talking about baseball, and obviously they don't have baseball in England, but fan culture and stuff. That's something I'll touch on again in a little bit when I go to the comments. So I'm just going to leave that there because it's not a total pet peeve, but it is a younger man thing more of the time. If you're just wearing, if you're wearing it to work and you have to rep your team, that's one thing. But a lot of the bars and clubs actually stopped letting guys wear logo hats altogether because, certain affiliations in the illegal enterprises and such, and just rivalries, right? You might have a Dodgers fan and a Giants fan, and they see each other in the bar and they're both drunk. You're going to have an issue. Depends on the type of bar. Like some bars will really encourage you to wear your fan gear because that's the whole point. That's the reason they're showing the game. Whereas other places like, no, this is after hours. This is a dance place. This is not a, sports bar or whatever. So yeah, that, but then I'm kind of having to do them out of order, but his comments will fill in a little bit better some of the things I'm just jumping around now. But one thing I don't really actually like that you might think I would like is the ugly holiday sweater. Most of these are just too tacky, Santa Claus doing drugs or pine cones hanging off your shoulders or something. Like, if you're gonna do it in a tasteful, toned down kind of way. That what I'm talking about. Green and red are not great colors to wear together most of the time anyway. So the holiday thing was always kind of a silly, festive thing. And so, you having a tie with Santa Claus or Frosty the Snowman or something on it, like that's, yeah, some people might say that's childish, but it's also fun because it's a holiday geared toward children. So that's why I think that, like, oh, Daddy's got Frosty on his tie is perfectly acceptable, fun thing to do. Whereas, Mrs. Claus bent over the bed or something is not the same vibe as, what we're saying. Oh, I should have put this sooner. Well, skinny jeans at like period. Yeah, he kind of touched on that. Definitely skinny jeans. But tied into the okay, that's in the comments. Let me read back the comments here. They're not in total context, but I think they're funny enough that or relevant enough. Whoops. That I should be able. We're only at 10 minutes, so if you're still watching, the next part of the video will be right after this. Okay. Do flip-flops and Crocs need separate categories? Let's see where. Okay. I don't hate sweatpants if it's January and I'm home watching All Creatures marathon or something. But if I see you out in public and you don't seem like you're rushing to the hospital, for an emergency, I was saying, yeah, I hope that the great minds, continues. And I don't, and because I agreed with him about the Crocs. Let's see, dumb fads at weddings. Yes. Oh yeah. But the thing about weddings, I went to one wedding once where they were really done up in like suits from kind of a more vintage era, like the 30s perhaps, or something, super sharp, and they had a jazz band and all that. Like, you're not going to find very many weddings like that anymore. It's really hard to get guys to commit to white tie attire now. So, a bit above black tie. But if you're having a wedding, you should be trying to get near black tie for at least the groomsmen. Please, matching suits and all that. Yes, that's a good thing. Then he, similar to the sports gear though, but not the sports gear. He was talking about like I said, Scooby-Doo ties or Homer Simpson ties, and Star Wars and Star Trek and Batman and Superman and all, the Hulk and all that kind of thing, being too childish. And I agree to a large extent. Let's just get it over with. I mean, yeah, you're not, once you're at a college, it's kind of, there's kind of a gray area because you're first maybe entering the business world and you have to dress more formally, but you still want to be the fun guy. That'll maybe work for a year or two, but then after that, I think you need to settle down. But then in your personal life, I grant you a bit more leeway, at least until you're 30, because I have to come to the defense of nerd culture. And I said this, somebody should read this here. Time and place, sure, but also many who were bullied mercilessly when younger by guys who often grew up to wear, even more tacky versions of things, in sports apparel as opposed to nerdy apparel. And they don't even know how to tie a tie if they do get forced into wearing a suit someday. And a lot of these guys, like I said, right out of college, you're still feeling that identity that, in high school, you're not wearing a suit, you're wearing a Hulk t-shirt. Like, nobody really cares. That's your thing. You're a dork, and girls don't talk to you anyway, so it doesn't really matter if, you change your shirt or whatever. Like, I can't really, but like, when you get to college, then yeah, it kind of starts to separate. Like, okay, you don't have to still be that. Nobody here went to your high school. They don't know you. You're allowed to, mature or grow or not be so immature in a quote unquote. But again, like I said, it depends on the way they do it. It depends on what they're wearing and how they're wearing it. It depends on how much better the item looks than the Homer Simpson tie that was shown. Because I probably wouldn't wear that one. But I do have like a nice Charlie Brown one, and I did have a great Scooby-Doo one I mentioned in my neckwear video that I just did last week or the other week. So I did a whole video about neckwear, talked about this kind of stuff, and nobody watched it. So yay! So now I'm telling you to go watch it, and you probably won't. Okay. Silly holiday items should get more a free pass now than the ugly Christmas sweater tradition that became tasteless pretty much from the very inception. Yes, okay, I agree with myself. He was talking about older men. He switched gears to talking about older men trying to dress too young. Yes and no. I mean, is that a worse thing than the younger men trying to dress too young, as we were just discussing? Because a lot of these older men, they already have grandchildren and they don't really care anymore. If they're retired, they're going to do what they do. He was saying leather jackets are usually a bad choice. Some leather jackets are more sophisticated than others, though. And I'll get into that in a second, too. He was talking about anoraks, which, as far as I could tell, he meant windbreakers in our country or the Western continent or whatever. I did a whole video about windbreakers in the spring, I think. I think that's the closest. Mostly, I only see guys wearing these if it is windy or rainy. Not necessarily a go-to thing. Again, California different than the East Coast. There might be a ton of these guys on the East Coast that he's complaining about. I wouldn't rule it out. But anoraks here are hooded things with front kangaroo pockets. It's basically like a sweatshirt, but made out of a different material. It's like an Alaska thing, really. And parkas here are all insulated jackets, pretty much. I mean, we have army parkas, but it's the field jackets that are meant to have a button-in insulator thing that almost nobody buys or uses if they're going to wear the field jacket. And I guess the field jacket trends become popular with the urban streetwear people who have no otherwise reason to really be wearing a field jacket because they're not that much warmer, but they have big pockets, I guess is the draw. Just cargo pockets aren't cool anymore, so you got a big pocket jacket, I guess. Yeah, the East Coast is definitely more of a parka place also overall, but California does have some winter weather most years. And so there are people who do own parkas and puffy vests and things. But I don't usually see anybody wearing what I would consider a true anorak. I have a couple military ones for emergency use, you know, if I'm caught hiking in adverse conditions or something, but I don't wear them as daily wear. And my windbreakers I do use for casual walks, but most of the and then he talks about pea coats and overcoats, same as windbreakers. Most of the time, no matter how great these other things look, I almost always end up reaching for something leather instead. I think the version of the windbreaker he would find acceptable is that Harrington jacket or the James Dean jacket, I guess most people associate it, which when I was growing up was a grandpa jacket, but now it's becoming kind of cool, I guess, with younger people. But I finally got some more recently, and I've barely worn them because again, I just prefer leather. If I lived in Chicago or Green Bay or Detroit or, you know, someplace like that, I would probably need a puffy vest under a parka, and then I would still feel cold because that's, yeah, I don't have that extreme of weather. Then he talked about basically, you know, identifying with the James Bond thing. That's a real English thing. I've seen like Gentleman's Gazette and some others talk about James Bond a bit, but I don't know that many James Bond inspired guys. Doesn't really translate in America as much. Most of the guys I knew who were into James Bond, the movies when I was younger, were a lot more nerdy than stylish, to be honest. In those days, the GQ dress guys were all the club guys who didn't seem to have any interests other than, you know, mall shopping. Again, the black suit guys with the black ties and the black shirts now. Yeah, they all had sport cars and all the flashy stuff, like the cool watches or whatever, to try and impress all the dull club girls who only wanted to dance all weekend. These are the same girls who didn't talk to you at school if you were wearing the Superman shirt, right? Not that I actually had Superman shirts by the time I was a teenager. I'd kind of grown out of that already. The dance music just getting worse and worse too. Yeah, gotta say that. I mean, if you want to make me nostalgic for 70s disco, play me some 80s dance music. Yeah, and then in the 90s, nobody at raves was dressing in much other than sweaty t-shirts, and they had glow sticks and bracelets, and that was about it, right? So yeah, that kind of summed that up. So that was my 5 things. But now in this other list, well, there's actually a third video that I'll talk about first. This is, yeah, 20 minutes. So we'll see how many of you make it to the next 10 minutes. This woman was saying about minimalism, and she was talking about home decor, not fashion and stuff, but she was talking about how moving had been such a challenge. And I was like, well, if you're a minimalist, that should have been no challenge. Your one couch, your 2 dishes, and your bedspread, right? I mean, like, you know, but then she said there was degrees of minimalism. Not entirely sure we're working from the same definition of true minimalism. She had said something about nomadic minimalists who only own a backpack, but maybe they're not all depressed or whatever weird, but maybe that, you know, they're young. They probably don't live like that most of their life. And I would say you are not entirely, but confusing to a large degree minimalism with like an aesthetic, right? Like a true minimalist, I mean, if we want to get not, you know, too political or whatever, is basically Kim Jong-un, where you have like your one unitard kind of military uniform and you have 6 of them in all the same color or something. I mean, you know, like it's, yeah, true minimalism is basically communism. That doesn't mean I think all the principles of minimalism are automatically, you know, absurd or whatever. Okay. So kind of a weird transition, I know, but and maybe not resolving in your brain how exactly to approach minimalism, but her thing was like, she had 12 sets of dishes or something so that she didn't always have to do the dishes. And it's like, well, that's not minimalism, because yeah, minimalist is basically forced to do the dishes a lot more often because they can't stand to own more than 2 cups in a bowl, and they keep it on that one little shelf and nothing is ever out of place because they don't allow any clutter in there. It's basically obsessive compulsiveness mixed with, again, communism, if you want to get technical about, taking it to the extreme. So what degrees are there beyond that? I don't really know. I'm not going to analyze it that far. Because, well, obviously I'm not a true minimalist in any sense of the word, but I'm also, like I said, not going to throw the baby out with the bathwater and say that, yeah, if you have less, clutter, you're probably better off and all that kind of thing. So in the next video, the woman had 15 things to omit from the wardrobe. And as is typical with these kind of videos, it could have been condensed down, and there's a whole bunch that really just belong under a bigger heading. And I didn't bother to count, but I'm just going to read them as she presented them. And so hopefully this will help some of you who agreed or disagreed with the 5 previous things, because like I said, I think they're loosely enough related that it works for a video and gives me something to talk about before I get the next pair of boots in the mail. So one was the 6-month rule, the common, I can't read my own writing. Oh, if you haven't worn it in the 1 year or more rule, then you should be getting rid of it. Again, if you watched my flannel shirt video this week, you know that I don't get rid of flannel shirts after a measly year. Yeah, it's California. Sometimes they don't get worn. Life goes on. So again, me and the minimalist are going to butt heads right here. Yeah, I might be happier if I had less than 100 and whatever flannel shirts, but I doubt it. I like flannel shirts, and I do wear them most of the year, or part of the year, most of the time. And I do get rid of them when they get, past the point of looking like something you should wear. Duplicate items, number 2, if it's something is neglected because it's a duplicate. Another thing, I do own multiple flannel shirts of the same pattern. Why? Because I want that pattern if something happens to this one. So again, I disagree, even though, like I said, I agree that they become neglected. And if you gain weight and you have to get rid of it, then that sucks. But most of us, it's not happening constantly. Most of us, we need duplicate items because they're the utilitarian ones. And so at the beginning of the school year, you always got 3 pairs of jeans, and then the one was always the one that kind of got left for Sunday, right? You wore the one pair twice, you wore the other one twice, and then on Friday you wore that last pair before you had to do the wash or whatever. So that one got washed, maybe less because it missed the Saturday cutoff or however that worked out. And then at the end of the year, you still had that one pair of jeans left that, you could save till next autumn or whatever. And that's just the way it goes. You buy the duplicate item and you don't wear them all the exact same amount of time. Everybody does that with certain things because, again, those are our staples. Jeans, Oxford cloth shirts, flannel shirts. Some things you don't need as much duplicate items, like a denim jacket. Do you need 3 denim jackets? You can probably live with 1. Depends on how much you wear it. It varies. I need definitely more than 1 hat, but I don't always buy the exact same pattern of hat. Now, I've seen guys on YouTube who have like 5 Indiana Jones hats, and you probably only need 2 or 3 Indiana Jones hats. Okay. You're keeping the other ones for nostalgia reasons, and we'll get into that. Okay. But so I'm not putting a total never own a duplicate item. That's not logical. Okay. 3, don't fit. Okay, well, yes, like I said, if you just gained weight and you're hoping you're going to lose that weight, then maybe come back to the 6-month rule and see if you lost the weight next year. And if they still don't fit, then definitely get rid of those. Don't keep a lot of don't fit clothes around. I still have a bunch that I'm trying to get rid of by selling them, but after a certain point, it becomes ridiculous, and you need to donate the things. I agree. Okay. Because again, minimalism and clutter, minimalism, blah, blah, blah. Okay, 4, trendy pieces you don't like. Okay, now this is one thing. I guess younger, hipper guys have this problem. I have never really bought a lot of trendy things to begin with. So owning trendy things that I don't like is even less likely. And I was pretty sure that also belongs under the 6-month rule. Same with don't fit. Because again, if you haven't worn it, it's probably because you don't like it, or it's itchy or something, or it doesn't fit. That's usually why we don't wear our clothes. Unless, of course, you have way too many duplicate items. Like, I have 100,000 flannel shirts. Fine. But flannel shirts aren't trendy items either. They're utilitarian garments. Okay. 5, shoes that hurt. Well, that's doesn't fit. So again, women's clothes, as I said many, many times, women's clothes and men's clothes are not the same thing for the most part. Men don't go out of their way to buy high heel stilettos that smash their feet, but look bitchin' and look hot and sexy. We don't do that. Okay. We do have shoes that hurt a lot of the time because we don't know how to buy better dress shoes than the ones we find in Johnson and Murphy or some other mall store or something. So you do have to hunt around and maybe spend a little extra to hopefully find shoes that don't hurt. But you're not buying, unless you're buying cowboy boots that are narrow. You're typically not buying shoes that are too narrow. You're not buying heels that are too high. It's not as big of an issue. 6, sentimental items. Now, that's a thing. Sentimental items are not usually things that do fit, right? They are usually things from our childhood. They are usually things, maybe hand-me-downs from a sibling or your uncle or something, where you kind of don't want to get it messed up because it's maybe kind of vintage, like I mean, if your dad gives you like a pair of jeans, you're not really going to value them the same way as if he gives you something really like his wedding jacket or something. I don't know. I don't have a ton of stuff that kind of fits in that mold. Guys, I think, are less sentimental about clothes too. Like, we don't keep our wedding dress. But like I said, certain things though that see, now it'd be all 80s stuff. It's all junk. Like, I wouldn't be sentimental about any of it. But if I had a dad or an uncle or somebody who had a lot of great stuff from the early 60s, I think I would be like, oh, or, man, or if I had a grandpa who had stuff from the 40s, then it would be sentimental. Even if I couldn't wear it, it would be like, no, I do want to keep this jacket because you'll never get this quality of a jacket again. So it's a little bit different. Again, the English, they're, and maybe some places up north, their thrift stores are way better than our thrift stores here. I go to the thrift store here and it's all Hulk t-shirts and Spider-Man socks and whatever. Okay. 7, inconvenient fabric. And she put as something like high maintenance. I think also included in this was like itchy. Again, most guys, we don't have this issue. Most of our, unless we buy like some funky kind of rayon Hawaiian shirt or something. Certain clothes, you have to dry clean, but most guys don't dry clean their suits probably all that often. I don't know how often I've never had a job where I've really had to wear a suit, so I've never really had the problem. Excuse me. I have some linen shirts that are, like I said, a little bit more scratchy, but I don't wear them all year. So when I do wear them, like, you just kind of deal with it. And they'll wear out eventually. And that brings us to number 8, worn out. Yes, if it's worn out. This is the part of the list where, are you a normal functioning human being or are you a hoarder? You might call me a hoarder because I just said I had 1,000 flannel shirts. Fine, I don't care. But yeah, they're not worn out and ratty and have holes in them and mice crawling in them and all that kind of thing. I do have some worn out stuff, and I have talked about this where I try to drag it across the finish line. I mean, the collar just went out in that LL Bean t-shirt that I've had for like 15 years or something. And it just finally, but the rest of the shirt is completely fine. And it's not a shirt I wear out in public. It's a shirt I wear around the house. So no, I'm not getting rid of that tomorrow just because the collar finally frayed up in the wash. When it gets actual holes, or if it shrinks even more for some reason when my body expands unexpectedly around the holidays, then maybe it'll be too small. I don't know. Number 9, still have tags not worn, and this was under the typically under the trendy pieces or the don't fit or the 6-month rule, right? And now I do have that stuff, and again, my solution for that is yard sales or eBay or something. Donating that kind of stuff is more of a last resort, but yeah, obviously if you don't wear it and it still has the tags on it, you're probably going to do okay trying to resell it, as opposed to the other stuff that they only want to give you 50 cents, right? Problem I have is they come and they want that for 50 cents, and I get insulted and tell them, more or less to go to the nether world, maybe under my breath more than out loud sometimes, but I have been known to tell people to get out of my driveway. 10, formal wear you don't need. Again, women thing, not really a men thing. I don't know many guys who have 5 tuxedos hanging in their closet. A lot of guys, they don't even own one suit, and you can't even get them in a suit. So, not the same thing as their weird shoes and their weird dresses. And no, this dress is only for this. It's for late summer cotillions, not prom. Like, what's the difference? I don't know. Don't match current lifestyle, and that we can put in. It's not that it doesn't fit your body, it's that it doesn't fit your life. And again, most of these women are talking about because they just had a baby, and so even though maybe they've lost most of the weight, now they're changing poopy diapers all the time and they don't want to wear a nice outfit. That's slightly different than again, if you're a guy who works on cars, you probably don't have 5 tuxedos hanging in your closet in the first place. So I don't think that's that big of an issue, but here it is. 12, gifts you never liked or wore. Now this is like the opposite of sentimental items, but I think it should belong in the same category. Because usually if somebody gives me something I don't like, even if I kind of, usually I just tell them to take it back or give me the gift card or get the receipt. Because usually it's a close enough family member that if they missed my taste by the mark that much, I'm like, why? Like, I mean, one time my mom brought me home what I thought was the ugliest shirt ever because it was on clearance for only $3. And I still said, I don't care. Take it back. That's $3 I could spend on tacos. Like, it's literally nothing I will ever wear. Why did you bring this in the house? But most of the time, people don't give you clothes that are that terrible just because they're only $3. So I don't think that's, again, more of a woman issue than a guy issue. Of course, we've all seen Ralphie in his bunny outfit in the pink ears. That's a very extreme version, right? But she spent so much time making it. Yeah. Doesn't really happen in real life. Okay. 13, makes you feel insecure or uncomfortable. Okay, body positive issues or whatever. Uncomfortable in public. I don't know if that falls under the trendy issues. Like you're trying this new fad and you feel like a dork wearing it because you know deep down that it's stupid, even though it's what everybody else is wearing. Again, most of us grow out of this in high school. I had this happen like twice, I think, ever, where I didn't wear it to school. I wore it somewhere else to test it out and actually got a positive reaction. But the positive reaction was from like the wrong kind of girls or something. Like, okay, these girls are just dumb and they're expecting me to be dumb. Like it was like Malcolm in the Middle. As soon as I opened my mouth, their eyes just were like, what means these words? He dressed cool, but he talked much. Weird. It was, and I don't know. So I was like, okay, I'm not wearing this to school, no matter how cool dumb girls think it looks. Back to normal. And that was literally just like the high top sneakers and the rolled pants and an untucked shirt that was not as plaid as this. It had a different design. It was more of a sporty design or something. And it had the suspenders. The cool thing was to put suspenders down around your legs and not wear them up like Farmer John. But the suspenders, and they were clip-on suspenders, which of course are the stupidest things ever. But I had them from some other reason. And then they became popular. So I was like, well, I already have these suspenders. Okay, I can wear them around my legs. Sure. Never did that at school once. But not because I was insecure so much. I think other times I was insecure was I had just got my first like skateboard shoes. And I thought they looked kind of funny, actually, from the top. They did. And the first thing that happened was my skater dude friend came up and said, "Oh, you got new skater shoes. Cool. Those are cool. You're cool." And I still felt odd wearing them for some reason. Even though I had just been positively reaffirmed that I had the best shoes in the school. So whatever. 14, items we keep for sunk cost. Well, this is the items with the tags on it again. Loss averse. So, yeah, because you know you're not going to likely be able to sell it for what you paid for it. And that's a hard lesson for all of us to learn. But that's definitely not a number 14 item because we already, and technically that could also be a gift that, even though the gift didn't cost us the money, there's an emotional toll there, right? We can tie that in. But items still with tags was number 9, and now number 14 is the same exact thing or whatever. I think what the distinction will be here is you wore it once to that cotillion or something, and now what if I need it again? But it costs $300. Again, men, we don't have that. We just rent the thing at the wedding place and we return it on Tuesday. So not the same thing. Okay, not the exact same thing. Although I do have some things that I bought that, now that I've gotten into the world of boots, where some of the boots cost more than others and don't fit as nice as we'd like. But I'll still wear them and torture myself back to that uncomfortable shoes thing. And then, yeah, this one, total woman thing, excessive loungewear. I'm not exactly sure what loungewear is, if that means pajama bottoms. I find that I blow out of the seat of a pair of pajama bottoms, like 2 or 3 of them every winter at least. So I can never get enough loungewear once the temperature drops. I need more. I get some of those expensive ones from Crazy Shirts, the Canton ones. I usually try to have a couple pairs of those, and one of them almost always dies every other year. And then I get the cheap flannel ones from JCPenney or Blair or someplace. And like I said, I'll go through 2 or 3 pairs of those almost every year. So what other loungewear can there possibly be that is excessive? I'm not sure. Women like to wear all this spandex and lycra stuff, and I don't think most men wear that. Okay, so we're at over 30 minutes. We're well into almost 40 minutes, and I hope some of this was interesting, entertaining, useful, or otherwise, and I don't know if anyone will have any questions. I seriously doubt it. If you do, please leave them in the comments, and I'm going to go eat something now, finally.